Is there anybody in our audience, and it's fine if the answer is no, let it slide. We'll bring up Spencer and we'll continue to have a great evening. But I'm just curious, like, you know, in this Los Angeles audience, is there anybody that can speak from the surf of gender? Somebody that's had a discomforting upbringing, like somebody that can talk about this, you know, give us more information than we have, because we've been pontificating about how you're supposed to raise a kid and what you're supposed to imprint on them gender-wise. Is there anybody out there that sort of, you know, went back and forth or existed in between, you know, and had a weird experience? Or anybody that is willing to come up and talk about it? You're willing to come up and speak for a little bit?
Yeah, come on up.
Sarah?
I'm gonna stand. I've never had like a gender identity crisis with myself, but I feel like my parents did. Like, they didn't think I was girly enough. My mom was really upset because I didn't want to wear makeup and things like that. But this whole conversation, I've kind of been hearing that it feels to you like gender neutrality is something that you have to work for with a kid, and it's sort of like the opposite of the default, which is trucks and dolls. But the gender system, in my view, the gender system that we have is just as much of a construct as making something gender neutral. Right. It's just like, it's beyond trucks and dolls. Like, it manifests... Like,
gender neutrality would also be an artificial construct.
Yeah. But
That's
it would be
concern.
one that gives more choice. Because the gender system we have now takes that choice away. And the problem that I have with the gender system we have now is not just like, okay, maybe if you let a boy not know he's a boy or what being a boy means, maybe he'll want to play with guns and trucks anyway, and a lot of little boys do, but it manifests in, like, everything in your life. Like, I'm constantly coming up against this, like, realization that I don't think I can do something because I'm a girl. Uh-huh. Even though I'm fully aware of that. And, like, just one example that I can't stop thinking about is this motherfucker with his feet on the stage. Like, that's not
like,
something girls
you think if you
do.
did that as a girl, you're thinking like somebody would go, "Hey, bitch, get your feet off the stage." No. I think that about him constantly. He is way out of line putting his feet on the stage.
I would never see a girl do that. No matter how, like, balls out, like,
no matter how pink Anatoly's shoes are, they're still all over our stage.
No, he doesn't.
Right,
he's Russian. It's a whole different thing.
Oh, is it?
Well, and it feels very phallic.
No,
right?
but continue, please.
Yeah. That's it. It's things like that, and you know, just kind of thinking like, man, why don't I feel like I can do a thing? Because, and then I realized, and then it makes a real difference seeing people that look like you do stuff you want to do.
Sarah, may I ask how old you are?
23.
Cool.
Sarah Silverman, in her new special, has this great quote. I'm just going to say it. She said, "Don't tell little girls they can do whatever they want to do, because it would never have occurred to them that they couldn't." And I think just having to tell girls that they could be like whatever they want to be comes from such a place of, you know, where there are certain things that you feel you don't feel comfortable doing.
When you say people that look like you, what does that mean to you?
It means gender, it means sex, it means race, it means everything. And it's a kind of thing where, like, again, I don't consciously think about it all the time. Like, when I look at a stage and there's only men on it, I don't usually think like, oh man, it's all men, they don't look like me. But then if a woman comes on stage, I feel relieved, and I didn't realize that I was holding my breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
Where were you raised in
the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area, okay.
Yeah.
And that's pretty progressive, right?
It's a pretty progressive place.
Well,
Yeah.
so, Sarah, do you get bummed out when sometimes I just do you come to the show a lot?
This is my second time. I just moved here.
Cool. Do you ever, because I feel self-conscious about this, do you ever feel bummed out that I just talk about being a girl, or kind of like...
No, I'm so glad.
All right, thanks,
It makes
Sarah.
me feel good. It feels weird to, you know, it would have been really weird if they had this whole discussion and you didn't come on stage. It would have just been glaring, really.
Do you think that when you look back on your childhood, do you think about, so you're raised in the Bay Area by parents who are, what were they trying to do gender-wise to you? Were they on a mission
They were just trying to do what they thought was normal, which is what everybody else is trying to do. But it was like, I remember I always just wanted, because I have an older brother, and I just always wanted to do everything he wanted to do. My parents didn't really put much on me until, like puberty, and then they were like, "Are you lesbian?" They just thought it was weird that I didn't hang out with boys that they didn't see. I don't know.
I had the same thing, yeah.
That was when it started to, because they were like, all right, you're a kid, whatever, play with blocks. But then after a while, I began to see concern with them, and I didn't really understand why.
Did they ever discourage you from doing anything that was like gender exclusive?
No, they just thought I was autistic, I think. No, it wasn't gender. We had a lot of problems, but not, most of them were not gender related.
Right, yeah.
My mom was very like, I thought I was raising you to be a feminist, and like when I would do things, she didn't think, she would kind of use like, I thought you were supposed to be a strong woman. I was like, I don't know what that means.
I think in a way, maybe this is totally wrong, but I feel like for girls it's a little more weird because the girl things are so girly. They're so babies. They're so pink houses. They're so everything. Whereas boys, like, they're trucks and they're models and all these different things. So like for girls, it's a little weirder to.
But I also do think girls get to have a little more variance. Like a little girl playing with a truck is okay, but a little boy playing with a Barbie
no, you're
is
right.
gay.
You're right. Yeah, that's totally correct.
I feel like the deck is stacked. Well, God, I feel like the deck is stacked against girls a little more because if a boy doesn't have to put on a pink chiffon dress in his upbringing in order to be perceived as being less masculine. A boy gets more leeway. A boy is allowed to be, for instance, smart, a nerd. Like I feel like if a girl like Mary Curie, I feel like if she was like more interested in looking through a microscope than her coming out party, I feel like she gets more punished than her male counterpart.
That is true. I mean, being a guy is
the best.
Yeah. I mean, it's so everything's in our favor.
But we're all very familiar with the term tomboy, but we don't have the same thing for a
exactly. That's my point. Yeah.
There's no
At my niece's fifth birthday party, like in December, she has all these costumes, and most of them are little girl costumes, and so because they're for her. And so there were a bunch of other kids there, but they were all but one of them was they were boys. So there was 4 boys there, and there was only one male like outfit to put on. So all of the guys were running around dressed like Cinderella and princesses and shit.
And I bet they felt great.
And the thing is, nobody gave a shit. The parents, there was a moment of okay, this is the first time anybody's ever seen anything like this. But all the little boys were running around. These 4- and 5-year-old, 6-year-old boys were all running around dressed like Pocahontas and shit, and it was hilarious. And they all they didn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
because they're playing
100%
cowboys
natural.
and Indians. But if you're a little girl, and you go into your brother's like things and it's all cowboys and Indian stuff, you're not the little girls aren't allowed to dress up like a cowboy or an Indian. They have to dress up like a damsel and whatever. Yeah. But it was all the parents were sitting around just watching my niece Maddox enforce that all the boys dressed up in these princess outfits, and nobody gave a fuck. And it was like everybody just like everyone's shoulders relaxed. They go like, okay, it's all going to be all right because like this is as it should be. And it was nobody was enforcing anything, and the boys didn't lose any credit among each other or in front of anybody.
Emily worked at this facility in I don't want to say where it was, but it was like because she's a therapist. It was for like bad kids, but these were like bad kids, like 13-year-olds who'd stabbed people and like done a bunch of drugs and stuff. So they were all like sort of very obsessed with seeming like hard and tough, and because there was all just guys there, the kids would end up like fucking each other. And then they would have these sort of crises. They would come to Emily, be like, I think I'm gay. And Emily would be like, well, not necessarily, you might be, but also just, you just have to get this out. One time she heard these 2 kids were snuggling and they weren't allowed to go home for Christmas. And there was these 2 like really rough and tumble like 14-year-olds. And she heard them whisper. One guy said to the other, he's like, Merry Christmas, baby. And I think that's what they sort of...
Was it Lou Rawls?
It became, it became a safe environment to kind of do whatever they wanted to do and not have to have a label on it, you know? And I think that sort of was weirdly kind of freeing for them.
Yeah, I think you are 100% right when you say that it's not cool for boys to be girly, but boys are really rewarded for being funny and goofy and putting on girls' outfits and whatever else. Like, it's not like for girls.
Just talking a lot.
Yeah, or just talking a lot. It sounds like Sarah had the same experience that I did, where their parents were kind of panicked over the way that you were interacting with the world, and were worried that like you weren't going to be. I know for sure. Like, my mom had an actual conversation with me that was about me not being pretty enough, or like me not being pretty, or losing weight, or et cetera, et cetera. Like, everyone feels really panicked when they see a girl playing with trucks, because it's like, oh my God, like their value, like what is their...
And also,
which
like,
might not be true now as much, especially not.
But
in
it
Los
still
Angeles.
is. I mean, when was the last time you heard a guy being called mouthy? You know, you don't really hear that. but there's these certain words that are sort of, they're so ingrained, and they are used to sort of denigrate women. You know, like Emily, this will happen all the time. Emily and I host this video game podcast. It's called The Indoor. Kids, listen to it. It's great. But whenever I fuck up a video game fact, they say, Emily fucked up a video game. It always goes on her, every single time. And they also tell her to relax all the time, which, like, fucking drives me nuts. But that's another thing, like, the way God...
Well, Emily's a bitch.
She is a mouthy bitch.
No, Emily is 100%.
It's interesting, because you notice there aren't any equivalents. You know how there aren't, like you know, racially, like, you have the N-word, you have the height of profanity when there's a group that is not part of the ownership class, and then we joke about how there's no, what are you going to call us, a cracker, honky? Those words don't matter.
It doesn't work because
there
of the power differential.
There is no. You can call you can say bitch. You can say the C word. You could say there's like 5 words that you can use to indicate that a woman is out of line.
Yeah.
And when a guy is really out of line, it's the same words because you impugn their gender.
Yeah.
I am the biggest offender of that. Like emasculation.
That's a big
when
insult.
you really disapprove of a fella.
Yeah.
I find myself emasculating them linguistically. Yes. Yeah. That they are a C word, that they are a T word, that they are
What's the T word?
Twat.
I don't think it's common enough that you could just say T word and we know what you're talking about.
I thought it was titty face.
I went with titty too.
There's not a lot of like, what do you do? From there you get into homophobia. You could call a guy a cocksucker.
Yeah. So then, Dan, what does that mean when you say that to a woman? What does that mean?
What do you know?
Well, I mean, if it's about emasculation.
Well, it's the same as the N word. It means you're dehumanizing them. If you call a woman the C word, you're.
And if you call a guy the C word, you're making him
saying,
like a woman, which
you're
is the
an adorable
worst thing
British man.
Yeah. Well, they just say it all the time.
Stop being a. Anyways, you're probably uncomfortable standing up here.
Oh no, can I say something
Of
before
course.
I sit down?
Please.
I'll get off.
You've earned it.
I promised my friend Eric that if I got up and got to talk, I would talk about him because he loves you. He's in love with you. His name is Eric Krasner. I'm talking about him. He's going to listen to the podcast. He's going to be so psyched. He's one of my best friends. He's amazing.
Sounds like a queer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Eric. I'm the worst.
I think like Sarah's experience is not. Like,
what was her name? Where did she go?
Sarah.
Zara.
Sarah.
Is it with a
Thank
Z?
you.
No, an S.
Sarah.
Yes.
Wait, where are your parents from? Some other place? I don't know how else to put it.
Other than
Because in
the Bay
Pakistan,
Area?
It's Sarah, not Sarah.
I'm Iranian.
You're Irani. Okay. Your parents got away from the Islamic Revolution? Nice.
Do you speak Farsi?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Did you grow up here? Or?
Yeah.
See, we made you sit down, then we started interviewing you. See, how sexist is that? Sit down, we'll talk to you from a distance.
It's not a good show. It's not a good show.